Just a couple of guys, a couple microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
Well, they said it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, Joe, I loaded the old video for our intro, but hell, it looked good, those highlights. Most of those people aren't on the teams anymore. They go to rub it in their face, Saquon there, but there we go. Welcome, everybody. It's Football on the No Show. We're going to be getting back into the season again. So obviously, you can see we're a little rusty here. We're trying to brush it off. We're late to this program here, but, we made it at least, right? Better late than never. Here we are. I'm Jim McPhee. Right there is Mr. Joe DeCapita. Joe, how the hell you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, bro. What's going on, know-it-alls? I know it's late. It's probably past some people's bedtimes on the East Coast anyway.
Yeah.
West Coast, though, hey, if you're tuning in from the West Coast, Central Time, anything like that, make sure you do us a huge favor. We're trying to grow this channel. We're trying to get as big as we possibly can get. Our dream one day would be to do this for a living. Maybe you guys could help us out with that. Become a member, become a know-it-all. And it's simply as this. Just head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button for us. Hit the thumbs up while you're there. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a dime. And be part of the know-it-all army here. Comment down below in the comment section because we are live right now. We're going to answer questions, comments, even if you wanted to enter in your own opinion on whatever we're talking about. That's what this show's all about. We're going to be interactive, and let's go, Jim. Jim, how you feeling, brother?
I'm tired, but we're ready to go. Draft time's coming up. I know every season, every year, before the draft, you come up with your lists here. You do the homework, you crunch the video, you watch these guys inside and out, all over the combine, get your tape out, you measure everything, you're on top of it, doing your studying, and you are going to do your list. You do your top 10 list. So this week here, starting off for your first top 10 list, it's Joe DeCapita's 2025 NFL Draft Top 10 offensive lineman. Joe, take it away. Let's go, buddy. What you got?
I tell you right now, at number 10, for offensive line, I have Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, a offensive tackle. I got him at 10 for a couple different reasons because, one, he's a little bit slow. He's a little heavy-legged. And I've only seen him predominantly at right tackle. It seems like he's going to be scheme specific and just stay at that right tackle spot. So whoever is in dire need of a right tackle, I think you can get this guy maybe towards the end of the first round, maybe in the second round. But he's going to be a little bit of a developmental project, just a tiny bit in terms of footwork and what have you. But it is a mammoth dude. So maybe if you could work with him, turn him into a starter for yourself. At number 9, I have Jonah Savanea, a guard from Arizona, who this dude is a gigantic house of a man. And he's going to be able, he played right tackle at points in time in Arizona, but I feel like at the next level, he's going to have to kick in guard and stay at guard. He doesn't have the lateral movement that you would like a tackle to have. So kick him in at guard. He could end up being a great starter, day one guard for yourself. And lock up that front. Number 8, I have Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, a smaller school prospect, but man, at the Senior Bowl, this kid blew up. He played center, played guard, played tackle. He can play everywhere on the offensive line and plays it at a very high level. He's a technician, and he's a very tall dude, 6'6", 312, has the tall length in terms of height, but arms has a little bit tendency to have those shorter arms that some teams might look at him as just a center or guard. But I tell you right now, he's flying up the draft boards. People are talking about him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked earlier than people expect. And number 7, you got Kelvin Banks from Texas, another offensive tackle who some people see him as the number 1 tackle. Some people see him as the number 2 tackle. But for me, I don't have him at number 1 overall as a tackle. I got him kind of behind, maybe at 3 overall as a tackle. For me, a guy who is a very strong individual, has the nice size that you'd like, a guy that can get out to the second level and make all the key blocks that you need him to make. I really like this player, but I got him lower because we're doing overall offensive line rankings here at 7. At number 6, I got Tyler Booker from Alabama, a humongous gorilla of a guard. And I got to tell you, Tyler Booker means nasty business in the trenches. He's looking to punish people. He even stated at the combine that he's looking to make people miserable when they play against him. So Booker has got this nasty mentality that you love as an offensive lineman and hopes that on Sundays he can duplicate what he did in his college days in Alabama. Now we get to number 5. Number 5, Josh Connolly from Oregon. A guy has locked it up as a tackle, a left tackle for the Oregon Ducks, and has done it at an extremely high level. This is where we're starting to see elite talent in the top 5 section here. Josh Connolly is second to none. He's a guy that can make all the moves, any level, can make the blocks happen. And then at number 4, we have a familiar name, but maybe not this season, Josh Simmons from Ohio State. Josh Simmons, if you told me he was healthy this year and played all year, he probably is at the top of this list. But because of an injury, he missed all of last season, and some teams are a little skeptical on his injury. Is he going to be fully healthy by training camp and what have you? So he is a little bit lower on the list. But I tell you right now, if he is completely healthy and whoever takes him, wherever that is, you're getting a supreme number 1 overall tackle out of this class, and it would be a huge get for anybody. Number 3, we have Donovan Jackson, another Ohio State teammate uh, of Josh's. Donovan Jackson is a guard who was playing predominantly guard, and then with the injury with Simmons, he kicked out to tackle this year and played at an extremely high level. A guy that has done everything. So you got scheme versatility with Donovan Jackson, can play guard, can play tackle. He can do a lot of things for you and play him at a high level. That's why I have him at number 3 overall. And then at number 2, we got Will Campbell. A lot of people have Will Campbell from LSU as the number 1 overall offensive line prospect. I have him at 2. He is a technician. He's got shorter arms. For me, it's hard to deal with that. A lot of people have him projected to still play tackle, and it's happened a little bit in the NFL, but not as much. So look for Will Campbell to either kick in at guard, or if a team wants to give him a shot at right tackle or what have you, they can do that. But solid player all around. And then number 1 overall, I have is Armand Membu from Missouri. This dude has elite traits as a tackle. He played right tackle for Missouri. He can kick into guard if you need him to do that also. So he is versatile in that fashion, but he checks all the boxes. He had the biggest broad jump. He had the biggest vertical jump as an offensive lineman. He's super strong. He doesn't have short arms. He has those prototypical arms that you like, and this guy is smart as attack. Armand Membu, to me, is the best offensive lineman. You can't go wrong with him no matter where you take him in this draft, and that is my top 10.
All right, Joe, there you go. That's the top 10 here for you, and that's offensive lineman. That's for the 2025 NFL draft. Can't wait to see your next list, Joe. I always go to you. You're my go-to guy for this stuff and all the info. I'm a little new to it. I know last season I ended up going over top of the and looking at quarterbacks. I had enough time to look at quarterbacks, but I definitely wasn't going to dive into all that stuff. So who knows? Maybe I'll look at quarterbacks again this season, though. But you're always bringing it. You're always bringing the information. So anybody out here, again, in case you missed the list, we are going to post the list separate by itself too out there too, so you can check it out again and hold it by you too when the NFL draft comes at the end of April. That could be your cheat sheet. You can look at it and say, hey, where do these tie up? Or if you guys, again, have different opinions about the list, let us know in the comments down there too. Absolutely. And we appreciate it. So, Joe, a couple things going around the news, but I think some of the things we wanted to bring up here too, for me, I think it is interesting is the Cowboys in this offseason. The Cowboys, they have money to spend. They have a pretty good cap number here. But again, with CeeDee Lamb restructuring his contract and says, hey, I'm looking to win. Let's do something here. Dak Prescott, highest paid player on average per year, in the league right now. what are they doing here? Because in free agency, they really didn't sign anything. They weren't very active, and there was players out there to be had. I mean, you add even some guys onto some
Still
of the
are.
players that they have. Demarcus Lawrence left, but then he comes out and in an interview, and maybe he's doing this just for Seattle's
Attention.
or if Seattle's fan base, because they're the ones that interviewed him. And they're like, hey, what's it like, blah blah. He's like, oh, I wasn't able to. I don't think I would have got a championship here, but at the Dallas. But now I'm here. Now I'm here. So it was sort of like a hype for everybody, but everybody took it as, whoa, he just said, oh man, with the Cowboys, we would have never won a Super Bowl. Whoa. And then all of a sudden, feud between him and Micah Parsons, and then Micah Parsons on the other hand, mixed things we're getting out here. We're hearing that they're close to a deal. Then all of a sudden, the NFL.com insiders post that they are just starting talks even right now. Nothing serious even right now. So I think, with the money that they have here, obviously they're going to try and lock in an extension for Micah Parsons, because you can't let a guy like that go. And I'm sure that's even why, DeMarcus Lawrence, walked, which is fine. But what's their game plan here, and how much of a contender are they going to be this season with Washington, the way they played, and also now the returning champions, the Philadelphia Eagles?
I mean, the Cowboys, listen, the biggest problem that they had was coming into this is cap space. They were decimated by it. They didn't have hardly any of it. They had a little bit, not a much, but now they turned it around where by restructuring these contracts, they've created a lot more cap space. Now they're at 39 million in cap space currently, but with no signings. Like that, I fully expected, besides the 2 running backs they signed. I'll take that back for a second. They have 2 running backs they signed. Javonte Williams was one of them. And it's like, okay, they addressed the backfield, but not with high-end talent, but with guys that have they've been on teams. They really weren't the answer there. So the Cowboys are willing to take them on the cheap, bring them to Dallas, and maybe they can make something work for them with the offense that they're gonna, put in place. I struggle with the remaining cap space that they have, and the fact that, just like you mentioned, there was a bunch of free agents available. Now, we didn't expect them to be big players for the high end guys, but now that we're in basically if you want to call it the third wave of free agents that are kind of left over and aren't going to command a ton of money, but there's some solid players that are still out there that they could bring in on the cheap, and they could be starters for them, or at least good role players on the roster to help them kind of turn the corner a little bit and kind of get back into the flow of things. Man, I tell you, $39 million is a lot of money to utilize to fill holes that are much needed for the Dallas Cowboys, and we're still not seeing it. They just got a couple of running backs, low tier kind of guys, but no big time answers. Whether any holes or any positions that they're looking to upgrade on. Like, I kind of fully expected at this point that Mekhi Becton was hanging around in the free agent heap, passed through the first wave, passed through the second wave. Dallas, you need help at offensive line. Why don't you go get Mekhi Becton, who's in the prime of his career? You don't have to pay him a lot because the contract he ended up just signing with the Chargers was basically
Mm-hmm.
10 million a year for 2 years on
Mm-hmm.
average. So I'm sure the Cowboys could have afforded that, and now you got yourself a starting caliber guard, and you steal him away from the Eagles. Like, that would have made a lot of sense to me, but we're not seeing them make any moves on the offensive line front. I understand that the draft is coming up. The interior offensive line is super deep. And maybe that's what they're kind of waiting on, is when the draft gets here, they're going to be looking to really kind of fill those voids and upgrade those different positions that they need. We know that they've been looking at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, they've been
Mm-hmm.
looking and kind of knocking on the door of the New England Patriots and seeing how much it would take to get Joe Milton from
Yeah.
the New England Patriots and bring him in as a quarterback that they could continue to groom and maybe quite possibly be the future after Dak Prescott. So
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of question marks for Dallas. I don't think they're going, by the way they're acting, they are content with just kind of going the pace that they're going, wait for the draft, see what happens after the draft, and then if they need to plug in holes then and they have some money left over, then they can kind of go after those needs. But
Right. But
I'm
again, for
sorry.
Mhm.
I'm surprised that they haven't locked up Micah Parsons up to this point.
Right.
After I thought for sure that after they created all this cap space, that it was all in preparations to kind of work on a deal and lock in Micah Parsons. I'm not saying that that means that Micah Parsons isn't going to sign with Dallas or Dallas isn't interested. Of course they are.
Mhm.
He's their best defensive player. They need to lock him up. Pass rushers like him do not come around often. And
Right.
for Dallas, get the thing done.
Right, and they
And
seem
Jim,
to do this
I
all the
just
time,
wanted to
right,
s
Joe?
I just wanted to say one more thing.
Mhm.
The biggest problem for me is the fact that this guy hasn't had any phone calls. His agent hasn't talked to Dallas. Dallas Cowboys aren't reaching out to him. There's been no talks
Mhm.
at
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
negotiating a new deal.
Yeah, and the Dallas Cowboys seem to play this game every single time with every single star player that they have. Why does it take so long? And then they sit on it, and look what happens. Other teams start to lock in their guys, get the contracts going. This guy's the next highest non-quarterback. This guy's the next highest non-quarterback.
Mhm.
Max Crosby, once there was talks about it, boom, a deal got done like that. Derek Stingley with the Texans, deal got done just like that. We've known about this thing with Micah Parsons for so long. And like you said, crickets out there. Like, what's going on? What's taking so long? A lot of people expected he's going to be the next, highest paid, non-quarterback, or at least of DNs or rushers, or however you want to classify him. In which I could even see that, but you get it done then. I mean, he's your star player. He's your bread and butter. You saw the difference again when he's not in the game. That's what when the Dallas Cowboys were on their losing streak. When Micah Parsons was out injured, it was there. That was done. Put a fork in him, and then compound injuries on top of that. Uh, I don't even think Dak Prescott was a bigger void than Micah Parsons. When Dak Prescott was out, Cooper Rush stepped in, and it seemed like he did just fine. He was fine. And now he's not even in that building anymore, either as your backup. And we've known for the last couple of seasons that Dak Prescott gets injured. Right, Joe? I mean, so what's the plan? Is it going to be Jameis Winston now, or too? If all of a sudden, say some of these other guys don't lock down, if some of these other guys get locked in, like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or whatnot, and they don't get the deal done for Joe Milton, which I think is a great plan if they try to do that. I mean, what do you got to lose? Whatever. You probably won't get, have to give away much equity for him, and it's a
Yeah,
shot in the dark. He's got athleticism. He's got a cannon
right.
of an arm. It's worth a shot, but right now they have no answers. And,
Yeah,
and if
right. I
and they
mean,
have the money, but again, what are you going to try to do this all in the draft? And that's what makes me question whether they're even a contender or not. What are they doing? What's the game plan here? Are they even going to be that team where, hey, we them boys, we're going to contend every single year? And
Jim,
I don't see this. Meanwhile,
Jim,
Joe, before you
we got a
get back
know-it-all
into
in
it,
the house,
yeah,
bro.
exactly, yeah. Oh, by the way, you can even add them on there too, Joe, if you want. But Ty Disco's in the house with us tonight.
He said,
Thank you,
"Watch
Ty.
for trade value for Parsons." I'll tell you
Yeah,
this right now. There's no way the Cowboys are trading Micah Parsons.
yeah, I
There's
think that
just
would
no
be
way.
insane. That
They
would
are
be
going they
insane.
are going to lock him up long term because he's the most important player now for contracts. And he said Patriots at 4 may do it. I don't think so. I don't think the Patriots have a lot of holes to fill and they're looking forward to the draft. They have a lot of money. So and we've already seen them like
Mhm,
even currently they're bringing in Stephon Diggs for a visit and they possibly might be signing him to be their number 1 for next year. So,
mhm.
Patriots have made some moves, with all that money and
Yeah,
rightfully
they
so.
got money.
But
Mhm,
then you also still have the draft. So, I don't think the Patriots wanna forfeit a large amount of capital to get one player. I understand it's Micah Parsons, but again, I definitely don't anticipate the Cowboys to ever make him available, at least not right now in his prime.
mhm. And again,
Ty
they're probably
also
just
says
arguing a little bit about money. It's crazy.
yeah, Ty also says Jerry Jones plays
Hardball.
hardball like it was 20 years ago. Gotta learn to adapt. Honestly, Jerry Jones really isn't running the ship as much as everybody wants to keep pushing that narrative.
Mhm,
It's been shifting the last couple of years that the power the torch, if you will, has been slightly in favor of his son and Stephen Jones. So he's been handling a lot of the GM duties. He's obviously Jerry Jones is still there. He's still kind of like the end all be all decision maker. But I gotta say, like the front office of the Cowboys would love to get a deal done. It's gonna happen. We talk too much about these high profile players going elsewhere when he's one of the best players on the roster. If not the best, you could argue between him and CeeDee Lamb. But
Mhm.
uh I tell you, it just doesn't make sense to me that the Cowboys would move on from him. And this is a team that they're starting to, or not starting, they're trying to get back into the winning column and do it now because I feel like they know that as soon as the Dak Prescott, you know, time period is over in Dallas, then it's going to be going back to kind of like a rebuild mode. They're going to have to find that next quarterback again, and they still have holes to fill. So I don't anticipate Micah Parsons being on the move at all. Gonna stay in Dallas. I understand Ty, like, because everybody loves to have these conversations. Listen, we just had it with Miles Garrett. We just had it with Max
Mhm.
Crosby. We just had it with these guys that we thought possibly could be on the move, but logic told us that it's not going to happen. Especially when you had
Mhm.
those teams saying, "There's no way we're getting rid of this guy." Cleveland said it. The Vegas Raiders said it, and Dallas Cowboys are also gonna say it.
Yep, yep. And again, like I said, for me, that's the one guy you got to lock in. He's the big difference maker for you, especially on that defense. And again, when they went after in free agency, the running back room, like Miles Sanders, like I'm not afraid of that, whatever. I mean, I don't think they really helped their game there, unless again, bring a veteran and then draft, a running back possibly or something like that. But I think that was a key factor too to them losing, not being balanced at all one sided. And then once Cooper Rush was thrust into the game plan, there you go. I mean, it didn't matter what receivers you had
Eh,
out there. Then you see CeeDee Lamb
how
get
funny was
frustrated,
it
things like
when,
that. So,
Rico Dowdle didn't return?
hmm
Like, how weird
hmm
is that? A guy that is
yeah,
young in his
right.
prime, you
Yeah.
know, who knows the offense already, did actually played really well down the stretch of the season, and for them not to even
hmm
try to bring him back, I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's what I thought was crazy too. Like, they didn't want to keep a lot of the same guys, even though again, their new coach is within the same system. So, I mean, I think that's interesting. All right, so let's move on here, Joe. In the news again, some more stuff had gotten brought back up about Xavier Worthy,
It's
and the
another
Chiefs.
oh,
Once again,
it's
here we
another
go.
Chiefs
The
wide
criminal
receiver.
Chiefs. I think.
Another one.
Yes, here we are in trouble with the
So
law
the one thing, Jim, that I've
again.
learned from the Kansas City Chiefs is that the requirement to be drafted or signed is that you have to have at
hmm
least you know, one criminal charge on your record. That's
Yeah,
what it's
something.
getting to at this point. We first saw it from
Yeah,
Rashee
they've got
Rice.
to be getting a name for themselves
We
right now.
first saw it from Rashee Rice, which that whole court case is still ongoing. And now here
hmm
pops up Xavier Worthy. Uh, I question the front office now. Like, what do you guys like? Obviously, there's history from these players, and you still got them because obviously you love the talented player that they are. But man,
hmm
now you're starting to rack up, charges here in courts and everything. And for Xavier Worthy, he's accused of like, a domestic abuse. Like I've heard like from an ex girlfriend, like it was strangulation. And the NFL came out and said what? Said don't worry about it. We're just gonna kind of try to sweep that under the rug, try to move on past it, and just let it die on its own. But now it sounds like the accuser is filing charges, and that's going to be interesting because now you have two wide receivers from the Kansas City Chiefs that may be getting criminally charged, and we don't know what the outcome of that. We know most likely because the Kansas City Chiefs have big money, those players have big money. 9 times out of 10, they get out of harm's way, they get out of trouble, and they'll be able to continue with their lives. But if it goes the other way, they could literally serve jail time. And we've seen other
Mhm.
former NFL players serve jail time, and they get kicked out of not kicked out of the league, but they just now they're in jail, can't play anymore. It breaches the contract. And so, what does this mean for Kansas City? Like, I swear, if this gets deep into the courts and they're found guilty, you might be not without not just one wide receiver, you might be without both. Then the Chiefs may be looking to draft a wide receiver in the first round now in this upcoming draft, just because of the possibility of losing these guys.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thing. They keep getting this talent here at wide receiver, but then these guys keep messing it off, messing up on the off the field. That they constantly can't even have them in the same rotation at
Right.
all times. We started to see it back with even Tyreek Hill again, and they've had Kareem Hunt too, and then he's come back, to the team too as well. He's a guy that's not the best dude either. And then like you said, Rashee Rice wasn't a big factor here. So even with their signings here in free agency, they brought back Juju, they brought back Hollywood, just bring back the crew that they kind of know, again, that's did okay. But you saw what happened in the Super Bowl here when these guys faced a good defense here. There's crickets, nowhere to be found. Where who am I getting into? And now if you might not have Worthy at this point, and who knows what, again, like Rice, you
And
said,
and
what are you guys doing? Now you're paying the piper for having this type of character guys on
right,
your
and then
team.
you also got the little caveat that the NFL came out with and said they've given Rashee Rice immunity. Basically, like,
Oh
he's not
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get
no, which is
suspended
crazy.
regardless of what happens with his court case, he's not gonna get suspended. So even if he's
Mhm,
convicted and he's charged, they still won't suspend him. And that's a big
mhm.
if he's allowed to play still. So
Yep.
I'll tell you right now, it gets worse and worse as we go. And this is only one off season with these two guys. They're already both
Mhm,
of them are in trouble already. So, and you
mhm.
could go back if you want to do your own homework. You could go back to Rashee Rice's time in college at SMU, and he's got a record there. So it's not like it's a surprise. It was a possibility the whole time.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we have another know-it-all in the house with us tonight. It's
Christian,
Christian Dickinson is in with the
yeah,
house. Christian's
Rodgers to the
there.
Giants. He sounds fired up.
It seems like he sounds fired up. Yeah, I can
You
hear it in
like
his
that, huh?
voice. He's totally amped up here for Aaron Rodgers. And who knows? Again, that's another thing that's crickets. Aaron Rodgers. Joe and I, we talked about it a little bit last night on the
Mhm.
Blindside Blitz. We can bring it up again because again, this Aaron Rodgers saga seems a hell of a lot like the guy who really like wanted to date this girl that has it all. It's like, oh man, but she's kind of out of his league. And now for Rodgers, that's like the Vikings. And now they've even put it out there like, no, we don't want Vikings. We don't want Aaron Rodgers. We're staying with JJ McCarthy. So stop calling us about JJ McCarthy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then he's got two other girls on the line, and he's kind of just like, well, yeah, she's this and this, but on the other hand, this girl's that, blah, blah, but yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah,
then so
yeah.
it's kind of weird. So now the on the other hand, now the Steelers are like, hey, well, we're not good enough, and Cameron Hayward has come out and basically said, hey, listen, if you want to be a Steeler, you're going to be a
Right.
Steeler. It's whether you want to or not. Kind of put it up or shut up. And
Right
on the
on.
other hand, you got the Dallas or the New York Giants who are like, please, like, Aaron, are you coming or what's not? And then all of a sudden, again, you threw it out there, like you called them and said, hey, I left a message on the cell phone, right? And then all of a sudden,
Mhm.
they're not calling back. So the Giants are sitting there like, oh, do we call again? I don't know. I don't want to seem pushy. Like, I'm not sure. Did I mess it up? Like, does he like me or not? Like, this is the the scenario
Yeah.
around a grown man and in the NFL, like right now here. It's crazy, Joe. All right, we got
Yeah,
we got
Aaron Jones
Christian's got to say a few different things. Mhm. All right, Christian, he says, "Defense looking good so far." Yeah, with some of the signings that they've done, I liked what they've done in free agency for some of that stuff right now.
yeah, a few of the
A
big
few
signings,
sneaky,
you got Paulson
good
Adebo, you got
pickups,
Javon
and they
Holland,
need
you
a
got,
quarterback,
Roy
badly.
Robertson Harris, a
Mhm,
guy who's kind of like an underrated D tackle. I love that signing. So
mhm,
they brought in they
mhm,
definitely, invested in with their money, invested in starters. not just guys that like, oh, they'll fill a void, that they're going to play a
Yeah.
role. They went out and they got two big time starters and another guy who was definitely in the heavy in the for Roy Robertson Harris, guy who is a dynamite player, who's going to fit in nicely with this defense. So they've definitely upgraded their defense, and from what Christian says is they you guys need a quarterback to kind of stabilize that offensive side and then to the draft and fill even more voids. So it makes sense for the Giants to get a veteran quarterback. Now, does that mean it will be Rodgers? Maybe not necessarily. But I think any veteran quarterback is what they're looking for. They would like Rodgers because obviously that's their top choice. That's the guy that they made an offer to. And just like Pittsburgh, they
Mhm.
made an offer to Rodgers. And both teams right now are waiting to see what Rodgers decides. Like we joke around about him. This is like a dating game, and they're just wondering
Mhm.
who's he going to call first. Is it me or is it them? And
Mhm.
I think also there's other part of it where Rodgers is contemplating even retirement. I don't think it's going to be an easy decision. Obviously, it's not for him. I mean, he's spent days now thinking about this and hasn't come to a resolution. So I think Rodgers is thinking more about not just which team he wants to go play for, but now there's also that third option where do I really want to go through with this? Is what Aaron's thinking. Do I want to play another year? Do I want to play another 2 years? Am I going to get beat up the whole time? You know what I mean? Am I going to get disappointed like I was with the Jets, where we weren't really the chemistry wasn't there with the receivers. We didn't really develop
Mhm.
it, and
Mhm.
it was a tragedy there. So that's the other part of it. Now, if Rodgers decides to retire, then the Giants obviously were interested also with Russell Wilson, and that could be the plan
Mhm.
B. And from what we heard just probably in the last 24 hours is that Russell Wilson is kind of leaning towards the Giants over Pittsburgh. And for obvious reasons. You could see it because if Pittsburgh wasn't all in on Russell Wilson, who was just there, just left just left
Mhm.
the locker room and is like, "Oh, well, you don't think of me as a starter for your franchise, then screw you guys. Why would I come back? Only unless you were the last team that needed a quarterback, maybe." But now that he has options, he's gonna choose probably the other option. So, Giants seem to be in the driving seat. Even if they lose Rodgers and say he does decide to play and go to Pittsburgh, they're still gonna have Russell Wilson. You're still gonna have that vet, and then you go into the draft and take your future quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting scenario for them. Like I said, at first I was against it with Aaron Rodgers, but who knows? We'll see what happens, what he could do with this and this
Mhm.
receiving core. But the one thing I did get upset with is the fact that they said to Darius Slayton, like, "Hey, see you later," go shop
Yeah,
yourself, whatever, go see
of
what you
course.
got, and then again, nobody. But then they go and said and re-sign him again. Like I was ready to just let him walk. Like, go ahead, man. Like, see you later.
Well,
And
I mean, they
and
bring in a guy who still has speed, that he still, knows the playbook, he knows the team and everything, so I feel like it was and he's cheaper than what he thought he was worth. That was the whole reason. Teams do that all the time
mhm.
where they're like,
Yeah,
"Okay,
yeah,
go
yeah,
test free
yeah,
agency. Sure, if you think you're worth 12 million a year, go ahead. Go try to find out." And then when they find out,
yeah.
"Oh, crap, they were right." Then they come crawling back and
Mhm,
you can sign them a little cheaper. Listen,
mhm.
I'm not thrilled about the signing either. I feel like the Giants should have moved on from him and then look into the draft to possibly drafting another wide receiver, which, by the way, there's plenty of wide receivers to choose from in this draft.
Yeah,
So I think that would be a
right.
more and especially it would be better for the
Right,
fans
right, and the fact that it's like a 3-year deal, it's like, "All right, we'll bring you back 1 more year or
yeah,
whatever," you know what I mean? Because again, you can get wide receivers in the draft,
and better,
whatever, and you're still gonna pay them not that
and
much
better.
either, and
I
yeah,
mean,
and better,
honestly, there's
yeah.
a bunch
Yeah,
of better
again
receivers that they could, team him up
right.
with Malik Neighbors
Mhm.
and, see what you
Yeah.
can do there. So
Yep.
I'm not thrilled about it either.
Mhm, mhm. But like you said, if somebody could possibly do something, maybe it's Aaron Rodgers, who knows? Um, eh, Christian brings up excuse me, now talking about the Giants, the fact that Daniel Jones now is there with the Indianapolis Colts. He says, how about Colts bringing in some nice QB competition for Richardson? LOL. First and second lowest QBR last season, battling it out. And then he says, two skunks in an alley fighting over who stinks worse. Oh man, I love it. I love the analogies, Christian.
What
I
are
love
the
it.
who are the two
But what do you think
skunks?
about that though? That's the thing. It's like he must really not like Richardson or Daniel Jones in
Well,
this
here's the
one.
thing.
I find it interesting
I think the
because
Colts. I think the Colts have something working well for them because there was even rumors about Anthony Richardson, how there was a possibility that the Indianapolis Colts might try to trade him this offseason and try to cash in on him, and then they must like somebody in this upcoming draft that they're like, well, I think we could win, more games with this other rookie. Um, but obviously that's kind of fallen on deaf ears now at this point. So Richardson going to remain as a Colts guy. They bring in Daniel Jones, which honestly, some people may argue sometimes players need different working environments and different scheme, and they might flourish somewhere else. So maybe Daniel Jones, maybe it's Indianapolis. We've seen how Richardson has a hard time staying healthy, and maybe he will end up getting his shot this upcoming season if AR once again gets hurt and leaves and misses any kind of time. Then Daniel Jones will be able to get another opportunity to show what he can do in this league. And yeah, it wasn't a ton with the Giants. He showed flashes there too, but maybe he can be a little bit more consistent with Indianapolis. We'll have to wait and see.
at least it's another shot at being a starter. I think if anything in anywhere in the league, like I guess that's still kind of, I guess, a question mark. The Colts is one of the teams because we've seen Anthony Richardson bounce in and out of the lineup, some of it because of injuries, but then also you saw how he quit on the team and on the play. And it's like, oh, I'm benching myself. I'm taking myself out. I'm tired. I'm gassed a little bit. And everybody looked at him and the whole internet blew up. They're looking at him like, what? Or did you just totally just say, yo, no, come in. I'm just gonna sit down. It's like, what are you doing? And they question his
Mhm.
competitiveness and whatnot. So when he got back in, though, he really turned it around and played a whole lot better. So, I mean, that's what I think makes this kind of signing a little more interesting because Anthony Richardson, you'd see right now, is the starter. But does Daniel Jones in camp even show something? And it's to where it is maybe a quarterback competition, and he maybe have a shot.
Yeah,
It depends on what
yeah.
Steichen might think of him. Or again, like you said, injuries on top of it. He is possibly prone to be getting injured. Daniel Jones can fit in, and maybe that's a better situation for Daniel Jones too, because you don't have all that kind of that pressure there of trying to be the guy, and do all that. You're coming in as a fill up. Let's see what you can do. Now I can put my best
Mhm.
foot forward and see
Yeah,
something.
Christian also says, "What the hell is Cincy gonna do on defense?" Well, we actually this was another topic we talked about.
A
Um,
topic we did last night. Go back
yeah,
and watch
last
last
night.
night's show.
Uh, but Cincy, honestly, they're going to the draft. That's what it tells me is that they had to lock in both those guys because they are in their prime and they're two of the best receivers in the league. Like Jamar Chase, he's right up there with Justin Jefferson. I mean, you could argue 1A, 1B, whatever, but and then you have T. Higgins, who, by all accounts, a lot of people view him as the best wide receiver too. They're both 25 and 26. Like I said, I mean, it's kind of like they had to make that happen, especially still having a quarterback like Joe Burrow. You got to keep those weapons there. So that's what they did. Now their focus is all on Trey Hendrickson at this point. They're trying to work something out. I kind of anticipate something getting worked out. Maybe it's before the draft. Maybe they got a table talks, during the draft until they kind of get situated. Um, but we've heard from our boy Roderick David, former scout in the NFL.
Hmm.
We had him on. Had a great interview with him. He kind of enlightened us to the idea that the
Yeah.
Bengals front office is not like any other front office in the league, and that they are
Hmm.
working with a skeleton crew. They literally have people doing 2 jobs at a time,
Yeah.
and
They're not working
that
with
kind of
a scouting,
delays the
company.
signing and
Hmm.
delays the moves that they wanna make. So, that's why it took so long, but now that they got it done, they're totally focused on Trey. They're going to try to get him back and bring him back. Definitely anticipate that happening. And then defense, they're looking in the draft. I really think they're drafting extremely heavy defense, knowing that they have, and people might say, well, they need offensive line. Sure, they can still get that in the draft if they want it. I mean, it is deep, especially for the interior O line. They're still kind of holding out hope that Amarius Mims, who they drafted a year ago at right tackle, is going to continue to develop and become that starter that they have seen or that they want him to become. So it's gonna take time, but I think the Bengals are gonna be just fine because even after the draft, if there's still a hole here, a hole there on the roster, they can go into free agency after the draft and say, you got UDFAs after the draft that they're gonna sign, and then you got free
Hmm.
agents that they can
Hmm.
bring in a older vet to say, "You know what? We're gonna bring this guy in a one-year deal just for the season because we have a glaring need here and there." They're gonna be fine.
Right, and I mean, I do like them bringing back, BJ Hill though too, because
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he performed really
When
well
he
for
was
them. That
healthy,
solid guy here at the D tackle
when he was
position, yeah.
healthy.
That's the thing though too, is getting some of these guys healthy in that interior here on the D line to help them out. Um, but I mean, I think it'll be interesting to watch this season what they do and how they perform. What does
Said they
Christian say
got one
now?
of the
They got
weakest
one.
offensive lines in the league. I have to disagree with you. I don't think they have the weakest. I think they have the most
I don't think they have their
inexperienced,
weakest, but they've
offensive line.
struggled. But
They've
yeah.
had
Hmm.
guys that come in there,
Hmm.
like, you look at Alex Kappa, who they just let go.
Hmm.
Alex Kappa came into that team, and they were anticipating him kinda shoring up that front, but the reality is that there's a lot of variables when you bring in a new free agent. It could have been not scheme specified for him. Maybe he doesn't work well with their offensive line scheme that they utilize. Maybe the coaching was so different that it threw his technique off. He was asked to do something uncomfortable. Like, all of those things happen, and it just didn't work out between the Bengals and Kappa. So he ended up being a free agent and went somewhere else. That- For the offensive line, they also have some younger guys that they're hoping get better, like Amarius Mims. And then you go into the draft. I really think that because the trenches in this draft are so deep, you can get a starter in the first 5 rounds of this thing.
Hmm.
And I think it's a
Hmm.
perfect draft for the Bengals, for any team that needs trench work. And I think that they're gonna figure it out, you know? Whether, and like I said, even after the draft, if they don't get a guy, they can bring in a 32, 33, 34-year-old veteran that can hold it down for one season.
All right, what does he say? Oops, sorry. You and I try to do the same exact thing. He says Joe Burrow saves them guys a ton with his movement. He gets pressured like crazy. Last year, we definitely got to see that a lot more. Him moving out of the pocket and making
Mhm.
some plays for them.
Yes, and that's and
Definitely
that's
has done
true,
that.
but also that offensive line wasn't the healthiest either. That's the other
Hmm.
part of it, is the fact that they had guys in and out of that lineup all season long, mostly out of the lineup. So, they didn't really have everybody healthy, everybody starting, and Amarius Mims being a rookie definitely didn't help the situation because he wasn't up to par yet. So, they're banking on this offseason him taking a bigger leap and being ready. Now that he knows as a rookie, like, "Man, these guys are faster." There's that shock value, right? Where as a rookie, you come in like, damn, they said they're fast, but I didn't think they were this fast. Or damn, these guys are all strong. You know what I mean? There's a lot of wake up calls for rookies sometimes, and that might have been the case for Amarius Mims. And I think they'll get it corrected. Listen, they might move slow as a front office, but they're going to get this thing figured out. And it's not for the point of lack of trying. I mean, this team has
Right.
invested in draft picks. They've brought in different free agents, and it just still hasn't worked out. So they know what they're doing, and they have a plan in place.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting tidbit that Roderick shared with us about them. That again, because people what they just see from the outside, there's like these guys. I think at first comment he said, "What the hell is Cincinnati doing?" So you look at these guys and they're kind of like, "These guys are idiots." But Roderick's like, "No, the guys that they have in the scouting department are amazing guys. The fact is that they only have like two people, you know what I mean? So they're doing so in double duty. They don't have a whole crew to do all this. So they're just twice as swamped, and you have that many different jobs to try and do. Everybody with all these different hats. It's
Right.
tough, and that's what they're playing
Yeah.
catch up compared to everybody else in the league. So they gotta get some more people up in there. You know
Right
what I'm
on.
saying?
Right on.
So what else does you have to say? Whoops, sorry, we did the same thing again. You excited for Gino to come to town?
I wasn't at first. As a Raiders fan, I wasn't as first. I had some reservations about Geno Smith, and after doing a little bit more homework on him and everything, I'm excited for him because he gives us a upgrade at quarterback. Um, kind of the thing that I learned about Geno Smith is that he is damn near top 50. He's a top 15 quarterback between the 20s. Like when you get to that red zone area, that's kind of where Geno Smith struggles a little bit. But he's a really good quarterback between the 20s. He can get you to the red zone. A lot of times he struggles in the red zone. So hopefully with offensive coordinator Chip Kelly can create some new creative plays for him to kind of open that that little bit of faultiness in Geno Smith and kind of open up a new Pandora's box for him to score better.
All right, Joe, we were just talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, and it made me think of how interesting again this will look like this season, because Netflix had put out there that season 2 of
Yes.
quarterback is
Yes.
coming, and they've
Can't
got
wait.
Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins now. Man, it is nuts.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
excited. Like, I'm excited to whatever happens with
100%.
this, because these guys I think are going to be great, especially now. Again, Joe Burrow, he wanted Mike Gesicki back, he wanted T Higgins. They got them all there, and we'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson too, if he's able to come back or whatnot. But we get to follow them throughout the season. Highs, if there are lows, if it
This
goes awry with that defense struggling or not. So I mean, we get to follow this whole roller coaster as it's happening.
And
It's
you
going to be
said it
amazing.
right there, roller coaster, because I feel like this is what Netflix is doing. They can't just have all 3 stud quarterbacks that all had good years,
Hmm.
right? And be all happy go lucky. They gotta add some drama to this situation, and the biggest drama is Kirk Cousins. I mean, that
Yes.
season from going from starter to struggling and then getting benched at the end of the year, that's going to be a very difficult, dramatic type of, events there and moments that I can't wait
Oh,
to see
if
those particular moments and how Kirk handles it and what Kirk thinks or says. You know what I mean? Like, does he get disgusted at some
mhm,
point and just be like, "Dude, I don't know," like, or is he just okay with it? Like saying, "Okay, it's
mhm,
part of business. They're gonna give the young kid a shot to play at the end of the season, and then I'll be the starter next year." Well,
mhm.
we'll see if there's any kind of awkward conversations or anything with Kirk Cousins for sure. Joe Burrow,
W
again, Joe Burrow had a phenomenal year, and honestly, you can make the argument that he deserves the MVP. Uh, Even though his
Mhm.
offensive
He was
line
there.
wasn't
Yeah,
wasn't that great
yeah,
and whatever, he was able to
mhm,
overcome. Jared Goff, again, another
yeah.
big time season, pushing for the playoffs and trying to strive for the Super Bowl, but fell short. So I think it's going to be a really good season for sure.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins, how amazing is it that it like, we see writers do this for television series. There's a character that the fan base likes in season 1 or whatever it ends up being, and then the narrative changes for the second season. So you find another way to hate him or love him. He's a different character. And this is what has happened now, just because of the way it has panned out last season for Kirk Cousins. Last time he was on the quarterback show, he was the starter for the Vikings on a, destiny towards a Super Bowl, with a great team. Coming out of it, I think he grew in fan base. People liked him. He was a
Mhm.
great guy, his preparation, everything. And then now he's in the Marcus Mariota situation in that part is surprisingly enough for the same team, with the Atlanta Falcons. And now here he is, the guy on the comeback trail, the guy that has been benched. He's coming off the bench. So now he's a fighter coming out of the depths to try and get that starting job somewhere, or even on the outside looking in at the younger guy, doing
Mhm.
well, or just the
Right.
starter now. It's like Rocky 4 or something, like now, oh man, I'm older. Now here, this guy is the new guy. So it's funny how it all played out for these guys in this season. Him coming back, that was brilliant of Netflix, I think, to grab Kirk Cousins and say, "Hey, you want to come back and do this one?" So I think that's going to be great television, like you said right there. The Burrow, roller coaster with the receivers, I
Mhm.
think is good. And Jared Goff, again, I think is going to be. He's taking up the mantle for Kirk Cousins from season
Well,
one. I think a guy that's quiet, that's is kind of been on that redemption song kind of story too as well, traded to this team from another team, swapping quarterbacks. I'm good enough, damn it. I'm telling you, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and damn God, people like me, right? And that's Jared Goff coming into this. And people have really gotten behind the Detroit Lions, and they've become kind of like that fan favorite too as well. Want to see the team do well. We got to see in the receiver show Amon-Ra St. Brown, and see how far they got to, and see behind the scenes
Mhm.
from him. Now we get to see it on Jared Goff's lens. I think that's going to be very interesting as well. So I'm excited to see
Yeah,
season
you
two.
got 2 quarterbacks that had really good years that were successful, and then Kirk Cousins, the reason why I feel like he was okay to do the show was because he was thinking that this is my reclamation tour. This is I'm gonna go to Atlanta. Sure, yeah, tag along, video me, all that, because I plan on winning. That didn't quite happen. So um, maybe he might have regretted that decision, and now it's going to be broadcasted for everyone to see. So we'll see how he handles it. We'll see what it's always intriguing to me when shows or someone that's interested in doing a biography or something like that, like any kind of special um televised or anything like that, any TV show, asking these players to basically open up their private lives, open up about their career, the ups and downs. Can we follow you? Like that's kind of vulnerable. And
Mhm.
kudos to these guys for stepping up and allowing Netflix to do this yet again. I feel like it was a huge success the first time around, whether you watched the season 1 of the quarterbacks or wide receivers. That was actually pretty cool. We got some insight,
Mhm.
especially with the wide receivers, where,
Mhm.
we saw Devontae Adams and how that season went terrible for him. And some people kind
Oh
of
yeah.
were already the writing was on the wall where maybe he does get traded, and it does happen. So we might find out something with Kirk Cousins. Maybe something slips. Maybe there's something in there where that you can kind of read between the lines and see. We've heard rumors that even right now, that the Atlanta Falcons, not other teams, the Atlanta Falcons are calling other teams about possibly trading
Mhm.
Kirk Cousins. Only problem is you waited too long. There's not that many takers
Mhm.
now.
Mhm. Yeah, again, it's going to play out. And again, I think that really is going to play out after the draft, and see maybe when the season starts. But that'll be interesting to see too, I guess, from Netflix after all this goes down, and
Well,
stuff. So it
we
should
won't,
be interesting.
unfortunately, we won't get to see that.
Uh,
This is
yeah,
all
once,
from
yeah,
last
yeah,
season,
yeah,
so
exactly. Oh, for that's right, from last season. Yeah, that's right. All right. So, Joe, that's it. That's it for this show here. I hope you guys
yeah,
enjoyed it. We will be back with more
we
content again. We're
promise.
updating stuff
We promise.
constantly too. Studio
We're
stuff,
gonna be back
freaking like
next
the
week.
videos. So,
If you haven't done so already, do us a
mhm,
huge favor. Head over to YouTube. If you're already there, make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys. The likes, hit the likes, buttons, and don't forget to comment down below. Whenever we're live, we're gonna read your comment. We're gonna react to it. This is a interactive show, and want you guys to all be a part of it. Thanks for tuning in. And by the way, next week we'll be doing another top 10 list for the draft prospects coming out. I'll have a whole other top 10. We did offensive line. If you missed it, go back to the beginning of the show. Our top 10 offensive linemen are there. If you want to comment down below whether you disagree, agree, or something that you would change, let us know.